the more your revenue grows, the more you need to grow your team, the more responsibilities you have, the more pressure. Like,
on today's episode of Rise, Grind, Repeat, we talk to Mike, CEO of State 48. Talk about how rare it is to be an Arizona native and how building a brand around community is just a good thing. Let's dive right in. I'm going to kick it off. Mike, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Rise, Grind, Repeat. I'm excited for this because, I've noticed before we even started working together, just your work ethic, just what you guys are doing as a brand, how much you guys are tying into community. And I think that's something that a lot of brands really miss. They say they focus on it, but their actions don't lead to it. So I'd love to kind of dig into how you kind of started State 48, where it's kind of gone, your journey through it. So kind of kick things off, would love for you to introduce yourself and kind of what's a little bit of background on you personally.
thanks for having me. Now we're all have a formal interview, even though we talk every day. But Mike Spangenberg, CEO, co-founder of State 48. State 48 was started in March of 2013. It's really started a couple of years even before that. And then really the reasoning for it personally is I was born and raised in Arizona. You know, growing up here, there wasn't anything representing Arizona in a positive, fashionable way. So that was like my thing. Going to back to school shopping, even as a kid in elementary school, like that was my favorite thing about school. So I always loved clothes. You know, my mom could even vouch for me. I would lay out my outfits and stuff. So I've always, had passion for the fashion industry, right? So, but knowing there was a business out here that was just, again, representing Arizona in a positive and fashionable way. You know, back then it was the 3 for $10 Walgreens shirts that were representing AZ. And it was like, it used to drive me crazy because it was, no disrespect, but it was a corny t-shirt. It wasn't, there's a reason why so many people live here. And I was, again, very passionate where I'm from, very proud, had a lot of, it tied into a lot of sports because, Stefan, business partner at the time, we grew up, my dad was our T-ball coach, and, we'd always go to Cardinal games at Sun Devil Stadium, and most of the fans were the opposing fans, and that used to drive us crazy. So it's funny how that relationship came together. Is like, Steph and I growing up together, and we're working together in the hotel industry. He knew I wanted to start a clothing company. Living together at the time, he created the name, and then we just went for it and got his younger brother involved. He's a self-taught graphic designer and third partner. And then we really just went for it. So in a nutshell, that's kind of like the why and the how State 48 started. But it's cool to see when you mentioned community, how strong the local community has become, right? Like back then it was just a word when we were doing First Friday events when it wasn't the cool thing to do. So we take a lot of pride in that. We were that first company. Now you see, I think our attorney said there was 50 plus State 48 companies now. We were the first company to ever start State 48. So
there was only one when you guys started, and now
we were the first company to ever start State 48, use that name, right? Yeah. And now you see State 48 refrigeration and all this kind of stuff. So it's cool that so many people now are growing up from Arizona. They care more about Arizona, and so many people that come here, like my family that were born in New York, they came here to go to school, and now they love it, and then no one wants to leave, right? For the most part. So yeah, that's kind of the why and how State 48 started.
No, that's cool. You found a problem in the state from a fashion perspective and then filled that void. And it's kind of cool that, you started the only name and now you got people not only in the clothing industry, but other industries kind of following suit. I know, for me to say it's cool, but I'm sure it kind of, it's not so fun to deal with.
We're a positive group and we try to, focus on the positive only, but it does get frustrating when you spend, a lot of money on attorney fees to police your marks and the people that are, blatantly infringing. That's frustrating, but we just focus on what we can do. And we know we were that first company to start. And, but anything, I think it says a lot more about Arizona of like so many more people are just proud of where they're from and they just want to, keep it in Arizona and start a business here. And they love the name and, it just kind of, make the best out of it.
No, there's not too many Arizona natives here. They're hard to find.
It's becoming so much more popular. And I always like tie in sports of like, we get a bad rap of like, Arizona being so fair weather and, how many, bandwagon fans and all that kind of stuff. But if you compare us to New York or Boston, for sure, of course, but we haven't had generations grow up here. Like when I was in high school, I felt like I was the one dude that was growing up in Arizona. And now you see like, if I speak at high schools or whatever, and you ask them how many from Arizona, majority of the rooms from Arizona. So I think it's just like we were just behind on actually like having generations grow up here, love it, make an impact in the community and do their own thing.
So whenever you were starting, you were working at a hotel. So it sounds like this is kind of a side hustle.
Yeah, well, at the beginning for sure, first couple of years. So
how'd you balance that?
That was very challenging. Again, I spent 15 years in the hotel industry, worked my way up from cleaning dishes at 15 years old to become a GM. So learned a lot. I love people, love service. That's what we take a lot of pride in, customer service. So that translated well over to State 48. But again, when we first started, we were all working full-time jobs for the first couple of years. Then we gradually, being smart about it, Stefan went full-time first and Nick went full-time. Then I went full-time last, and then we've grown a team. So I think that was, you hear a lot of times just go for it. Yeah, that's, sounds great. And, but there's a reality to that too. So you have to be smart about it. And, we invested $1,500 in this business. So we didn't have those extra resources, and we couldn't just go into, starting a career, a different career, right off the bat. Right. So that was one thing. Only regret I ever have is I wish we would have started in high school, where you didn't have all those responsibilities and salary and benefits. And it took longer to leave. But that was our journey, and grateful for it because you just appreciate it that much more. And to your question of like that, how was that, and how challenging was that? I remember the hotel industry, hospitality industry is very demanding, right? You have to, you're working 10, 12-hour days, sometimes 5-6 days a week. It's very labor intensive. So, but I absolutely loved, this is my calling in life, this is my passion. But so I'd work 10, 11 hours days at the hotel, go home, eat, and then go to the shop, and a lot of times fall asleep at 1 or 2 in the morning in the chair. And I just did it all over again. You just got used to going to bed at 2 a.m. and waking up. And now, thankfully, that is not the case. And, for years we've been full time, and I'm just so grateful for everyone helping us. And now you actually, realize you had to have that work-life balance. And I know I always tell you that too, but so now I try to be in bed by 9 o'clock sometime. I'm okay with that. Right. So like getting that good sleep, because you have to be fresh. And I do prefer to start early. So, so that was that process, and it just feels like yesterday sometimes, but very grateful for the process.
And how did you guys decide who was going to go full-time first? What was the thought process there?
Yeah, so it was more just on the flexibility, right? Like I was an operations manager at a hotel. Stefan was working. He just had more working with us at the hotel, and he just had more flexibility to be able to leave that job. And then we did it kind of like a part-time basis, right? So Stefan went, and then Nick had more flexibility to do it too, especially where they're at in their careers. And then I went last, but even in that process, because the hotel was like family to me, right? So they knew ultimately I was going to do State 48. They knew it wasn't there was no secret to it, right? But they were cool about it. I still had the same responsibilities, but for a year I worked 3 days at the hotel. It allowed me to, and even doing that was like, man, this is amazing. Concentrating 4 full days on State 48 and having like more kind of that balance in life and stuff. So, and that's how it goes. You put more, the more you put into something, the more you get out of it. And that was, it was always scary to, even for me to go full time, for everyone to go full time. But you quickly realize the more you dedicate and commit to your company, the more you're going to get in return.
Yeah. And how much you give is predicated on how much love and passion you have for it. If it's a struggle to get out of bed, you're going to snooze for an extra hour, cut it out an hour earlier, whatever it may be. But those hours, it's tremendously ROI positive, especially if you string together a couple days, weeks, months, quarters.
A lot of the day I was still working on State 48, even at the hotel. I was always giving the most respect possible. I didn't want to take advantage of being there and working on State 48. The reality is just like, I absolutely loved working on it. And then you celebrate the small wins as you go, but 100% right. The more you put into it, the more you get out of it. But I think nowadays too, the entrepreneur, kind of perception is like, everyone's a multimillionaire. It's a sexy thing to do. It's like, I always tell people like, temper your you better be super passionate about what you're doing. And you better be, solving a problem. And that was kind of like how it worked out well for us, because we were solving a problem. Arizona needs something to represent in a positive and fashionable way. But also like this, I know for sure this was like my calling in life. So I was like, man, I was willing to sacrifice, going out or doing certain things or spending money here or there, because I wanted to put all my energy into State 48. So that was like the challenge of like man, I wanted to be full-time like from day one, but you just kind of have to be patient.
The expenses add up, and when you start, especially in what you guys are doing, I mean, you got inventory. I mean, here it's a lot of just time, and so it's we don't. I mean, other than cameras and stuff like that, but I mean, it's a lot that goes into it, and then you got to start thinking about how am I going to pay rent and all that type of stuff. I mean, it's a lot to balance.
Oh yeah, you quickly realize how expensive it is to run any business. I mean, right? The things, even the perception too, like. Even if selling a $25-$30 shirt, people think that sometimes that's so expensive, and that's their opinion. But there's a lot of expenses that go into it. Cost of goods, whether it's your t-shirt, your screen printing, your printing supply. I mean, all the material that goes into your advertising, your labor. Like if you really break it down, like you need every single dollar. So, especially attorney fees. There's so much like labor. Obviously, the more you grow your team, the more so. There's so much expenses that go into running a business, sustaining a business. So yeah, you definitely need every dollar, and it's important to be mindful of that.
Yep. And over the years, I mean, you guys have grown like crazy. I mean, tens of thousands of followers. I mean, you have a diehard fan base. I mean, everyone, anytime you guys post, there's nothing but love. Getting there though, I mean, what were some of the struggles? What was the biggest struggle that you guys have faced, or biggest hurdle that was just like, I don't know if, we still want to keep going, or, I mean, even the desire to keep going, was there ever a time when it was just like, you guys got hit pretty hard with something, or?
No, I mean, thankfully, I get that question a lot. You ever think about, quitting or personally? No, like, I mean, we've always just tried to figure out what the next thing is, right. And celebrate small wins. But to your question, I think what the more challenges now is just, is being able to, get to the reach of the people that are following you, the passionate, people in your community, with Instagram and social media, all that changing, like it is hard to reach your audience. Right. So at the beginning, if you had 100 followers, you're hitting all 100 followers. And, that's one thing we always focus on is consistency. I think that's important for anyone starting anything. Like, you're going to start off with, again, I think people focus too much on the following, but more of like the content and like really creating a community. Who cares if you have 1 million followers, but if 100,000 of them, don't even care. Like, you know what I mean? Like creating that genuine community. So that was always our thing, is like just being sincere and consistent. And that's posting daily. I remember when we first started, we would have those, everyone wanted to be a part of every single piece of the business, right? I remember we would have discussions on what we were going to post like every day. And I was like, oh my God, like all of us were like, I was like, this is a nightmare. So it was just cool, like to see how you grow and kind of grow into different roles. And then you delegate and, just make sure you put people in the right roles. And at the beginning, it's, everyone's so, hungry and we're all stepping on each other's toes. But, really to create a business, you got to realize what people do best and put them in their own roles, and then grow the team and, make sure you ask for help.
And that's something that we're going through now, is one, creating process, and all digital stuff there's so many variables and nuances, and that's what we're trying to do, is create roles, who does what. Cause you get too many cooks in the kitchen, and it's just like, one, it takes that much longer to make a decision. And two, it's just like, is that the right decision? So, how have you gone about trying to delegate and being comfortable with it, and knowing that, it's still going to be on brand, it's still going to be on point?
Yeah. I think, again, for the first couple of years, we were spinning our wheels, and we learned what to do, what not to do at the beginning. Cause again, like, at the very beginning, we didn't really determine. Yes, Stefan or Nick was the graphic designer, and then we had our expertise and stuff. So, but we never really sat down and determined what everyone's going to focus on, right? And then as far as like as we started to grow, that's when I became in the CEO role, that was important for me to create processes, job descriptions, like really lay out expectations, like really form a business, right? Like you can only wing it for so long. And we did that for several years, and we're very organic and everything. And that's what I get most excited about, is creating that actual, business and again, the job descriptions and processes and all that kind of stuff. Cause you really gotta, more automation, the better. The more people can focus on like, hey, this is what you do well. This is what we expect of you. And, thank you for helping us. And then everyone else could focus on their own role. So that's what's really helped us continue to grow, is just really determining everyone's, strength, and then just, putting the right people in place and growing the team in the right way. Because that's one thing I take a lot of pride in. It's just everyone that's on our team now we've had some type of relationship with them in the past, right? I mean, we got connected with Zach Hall, and, it's just, you could tell stories on every single person who works with us, and you get to know their work ethic, and they got to be just as passionate about the brand as you are, designers and everyone. So that's been the most exciting part, most rewarding part, is to be able to obviously employ people, but then see them help us grow. Because it is not just me, it's not just Nick. It takes an army.
Yeah, it takes a team. No, that's exciting. I mean, did you guys see great growth or more efficiencies after you started?
I mean, we've had growth year over year for all 7 years in business. So that's, something to be very proud of. But obviously we're at a point where trying to even take it to that next level. And as you know, some of the insides, I mean, creating a foundation and, creating these different, revenue streams and license deals and retail and opening more doors. And there's so much more we can do. Collaboration is a huge part of our business. So that's exciting, is that the more you create a local, passionate community, the more you can do, right? The more people trust you, the more people understand that what your message is real, and it's clothing for all inspired by Arizona. I think there's so much more you can do, and that's our thing too. We always want to be more than just selling t-shirts and hats. We want to be that recognized brand of Arizona, and we just want to promote love all the time.
No, I love it. And I mean, one thing you mentioned is the collaborations, and I mean, I assume I know why it started, but how did that get started, and what is the whole idea of collaboration?
Yeah, it's a great question. That's one thing too. When you're starting a business, you got to be able to adapt, right? Like when we first started, we're like, oh, just make these cool designs. Everyone's going to buy all this stuff. And, we're big sports fans. So like, of course, we always wanted to tie in sports. Even at the very beginning, we're like, thinking of ideas like, how can we make like a Nash, design, but not being infringing with the Nash. So we quickly realized that's not the way we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure partnerships were because we don't want to infringe and upset people and kind of rip people off. And that's the last thing we want to do. So our first big partnership came with Bruce Arians, and how that came about was when he became the Cardinals head coach. We're like, man, let's make we kept thinking about how can we make a design. Of course, the popular thing is how can you make it work with Fitz or Patrick Peterson or whatever. And it was like, let's make something for BA. Like he just seemed like the coolest guy in the world, right? And then Nick created a couple different design ideas, one being the silhouette of BA with the headphones. And this was 2014. And again, relationships are big and how we've grown. So like Brian Hill with Phoenix Fashion Week, we went through Phoenix Fashion Week. He knew Jake Arians, which is Bruce Arians' son, the president of their foundation. Next thing you know, we were pitching them designs. They loved it. And then next thing you know, the Cardinals were the hottest team in the NFL, and BA was the coolest coach. And what was really impactful on that, though, is $5 per shirt went back to the Arians Family Foundation, which helped neglected children. So it wasn't just more, it was a cool shirt, and the BA was the cool coach. The Cardinals were winning. But it was more about helping the children, right? And that deserve a better upbringing. So that's what's I'm so proud of too with State 48 is all these collaboration, all these organizations we get to work with. It's making a bigger impact. Not all the time it's a huge financial impact, but just to creating awareness and just knowing like where our hearts are at, like we want to be able to make a difference in our community. Yeah. So,
and some of the collaborations you do with, Dignity Health, there's a couple other ones, but some of them that you do, you actually take, part of the profits and donate, right? How? Yeah,
so there's a couple parts of the collaboration process. The majority of the collaboration process is B2B, as you know. So, XYZ organization reaches out. They want to do a collaboration. It's a minimum order. We create a co-branded design. Ultimately, they pick what they want. And then we sell it to them at a wholesale price, which allows them to resell it, generate profit, or just, give it to their team members, use for marketing, whatever they want to use it for. That's majority of the collaboration. Now, a lot of, then there's, several that end up on our website that makes sense, right? Like Phoenix Children's Hospital, and we have to be strategic, right? So if we don't have anything right now on our website that's benefiting, or if it's a large organization that can help promote it and push traffic to us, and that's where we make the bigger difference. So Phoenix Children's Hospital, American Cancer Society, working with, Luis Gonzalez, Hometown Heroes that benefits first responders in Arizona. So being strategic of like, all right, where can this, we work with a Fiesta Bowl that, has wishes for teachers fund. We have a shirt that, supports teachers. So that's our goal, is support everyone. And that's the difference of why it would end up on the website, or as it would just mainly be B2B. So it's no disrespect or anything to any that doesn't end up on the website. Just a lot of them don't make sense. We have to be honest with ourselves and say, all right, if we're going to take over the logistics and order the inventory and everything, are people really going to buy the shirt? Are the masses that come to the website are going to be interested in the shirt? So more than just the organization promoting it. So that's how we have to look at it. I wish we could say yes to everything, but we can't. So that's the kind of the difference of why a collaboration ends up on our website, or if it's just B2B.
Makes sense. The Bruce Arians stuff, that's exciting. I mean, I'm an Arizona native. I love sports. You guys do a lot with the Diamondbacks as well, which, I mean, that's tough. At the MLB, it's like can't license anything. So, I mean, how have you how did that relationship start with all the different sports teams? I mean, did it start with Bruce Arians?
Yeah, so Bruce Arians gave us a ton of credibility, and they've become like family now, and that's what's so been so cool. Part of the agreement was that we're going to get involved with all their golf tournaments and all their events, and you get to network and meet people and develop relationships, and still provide those shirts. And so it really became a family, and that the shirt was ending up on Monday Night Football, and it was just kind of all over, and all those big events that BA and the foundation would put on. Next thing you know, the Diamondbacks took notice, and I had a meeting with Allison, and they blew us away. And next thing you know, we're working with the Diamondbacks and the Suns, and it just kind of all like started working together, right? And it came to coming together. And I think that's what's so important. Again, what I mentioned earlier is just like celebrating the small wins, because everything seems like a huge leap. Like it was a big commitment to partner with the Diamondbacks, and then next everything just kind of gets a little easier and easier and more realistic once you actually go through it and learn, like, okay, this is what we should do, what we shouldn't do. Like you kind of got to go through that. But that's been grateful. Again, that's why it all really stemmed that beginning relationship with Bruce Arians, because it just gave us a ton of credibility. And that's the thing. Everyone wants to work with people they like and they're easy to work with. And that's what we also take a lot of pride on, is like we want to make it as easy as possible, and we want to add value as much as possible.
There's so many things that you have that creates that network. I mean, has the collaborations did that open the I guess sense of community? Because I mean, you guys push community very hard. Was it the collaborations that started that, or was that always a passion early on? Or
yeah, I mean, I think the ultimate goal, again, at the beginning, was like just promoting Arizona in a positive and fashionable way. Again, this is where we're from, is just that hometown pride. So that's where it started, and then it really developed into community is such a popular word to say right now. So we always try to actions speak louder than words, and those actions are working with all these different organizations, donating, and again, it's not always about money. I wish we could just write checks, but we're not in a position to do that. So how can we create a custom design that people like, and that could work out for both parties, right? So I think just the more we are working with different organizations, the more impact you're making. And that's what's really stemmed us to create our own foundation, which we just, got approved this week on Monday, actually. So we'll have some exciting things coming to do on our own. Nice. But yeah, that's kind of how it transitioned. It's just like working with different organizations and knowing like the impact you're making, and even hearing it, all the positive feedback from the community and, organizations you work with, is just saying like, wow, this is what you did off a t-shirt. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we have to remember sometimes. Like we sell t-shirts and hats, but it's so much more than that, right? So
fast forward to kind of the present time. I mean, with everything going on, COVID, everything, I mean, retail has been hit really hard. Stores have to shut down, which, I mean, you have 2 locations. How have you kind of, you mentioned pivoting in real time and all that. I mean, how has State 48 handled COVID and whatnot?
Yeah, no, I've been so proud of the team during this time, and just being able to pivot, like you said, because at the very beginning when all this started hitting, it's like, oh wow, like this is scary, and then but my mindset and our goal is like to always just make the best out of something, right? Like you can complain and dwell on something forever, but why someone else is going to get ahead of you, right? So immediately it probably took a day or two to really like make sure the team was good, understand like hey, this is our plan moving forward. The last thing we want to do is lay anyone off. And thankfully we haven't had to if anything, we've actually hired since COVID. So, or during this whole, whatever you call it. Right. Yeah. But we launched a mask campaign that really kicked off the time, like, as soon as things started happening, we're like, okay, I feel like the mask trend is going to be the reality, right? So we printed 200 masks and just include in every online order, and it was, oh my god, it just blew up, right? And then so these last couple months, like, really have forced us to just be more creative and push and have to the emphasis on pushing more content online and just stepping our game up, because that was a huge opportunity for us to improve our online presence. And obviously, EIC has been a big help for there. But it's just forced us to just be better, right? And just be more strategic. Like, what are the next 5 holidays coming? What designs can we do? What are the next 5 partnerships? So it's like, that's where my mind's always going. I'm like, wow, we did a very successful mass campaign that's still going on. Tex Earnhardt chart. There's a lot of good things that were happening in these last couple of months. And I'm just like, all right, what's the next 5 things to do? So you always got to be planning ahead, and you always got to have that pipeline filled. Otherwise, and that's my role, and that's what I love to do, is just like, make sure we don't become complacent or lose sales or anything like that. So you're always just trying to figure out, like, what can we do next?
Yeah, you're the wind that guides the ship. So the face mask stuff, I love the approach that you guys took, because a lot of people immediately went to, all right, we're going to sell masks, where you guys kind of took a different approach and actually included it with every purchase. Have you guys gotten any feedback from customers and all that? Are people appreciative of kind of that approach rather than trying to capitalize on it? Obviously it's going to drive some sales, but it's not immediately profiting off just the mask itself.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. We always want to try to do something a little different. I know that's not like totally outside the box to include something in an online order, but I will say that we did start this before every single organization and every had their own mask, which is great, cool, like, right, it's just a face mask cover that we're like, hey, let's try it, and then it's been super successful. So really it's been overwhelming amount of positivity. And now, like, most people a lot of times now we have an ad running that masks is included, but a lot of times people don't even, and we post about it organically, but a lot of times people are like pleasantly surprised when they have a mask included in their order. So it says a lot about they're just grateful to be, I'm just grateful for everyone purchasing from State 48 during this time. And obviously more people are on their phones than ever, more people are at home, and so that's why we've been strategic on just getting more content, more options, listening to what people are saying, and just, adapting as we go. And
that's one thing I love. Working with you is just listening to feedback. How can then we kind of change either process, messaging, whatever it may be? Just quite a few companies are like, no, this is what we're saying, and they'll get the feedback, but don't make any changes.
Yeah, and that's why I personally love like managing our social media, because I love hearing the comments right away, man. If I heard 10 different people saying we need men's tanks again, okay, well now we're going to offer men's tanks. Like, you're dumb not to listen to your community that are supporting you. That, like, of course you're going to hear a lot of random stuff, right? But you got to follow, you got to pay attention to trends, and it's important to engage with everyone and just show love, and but more importantly, listen, like, get their feedback. If we're going to do this, is this something you're interested in, right? It's not about us, it's about the people that are going to support our brand. So that was one thing we struggled at the beginning, was we were very prideful and stubborn almost, and be like, man, I want to make this design, because Steph and Nick and I are totally 3 different people, as and it's just like, I want to make this, I want to make this, and I'm like, all right, I think it's not about us, it's what sales is, what people say. So so we take pride in listening to what the customers are saying.
And when did that click?
As far as like figuring out internally?
No, we're doing what we want to do. Appreciate your feedback, but this is what we're gonna do. To what, maybe we should.
We've always listened and appreciated feedback. Don't get me wrong there, but it was just like we were just more focused on like what we wanted, right? Gotcha. And it was just like, it's not about us. And I think that just as you grow, like, it is important at the beginning to have a clear vision, because you don't have that strong community, supporting you and giving you that feedback, So, but having, I think what really cleared up for us is just having our regular weekly meetings. If that was every Tuesday at 9 a.m., we don't miss that. And then if there's any frustration or anything built up, we air it out right here again internally, and then really just let sales, let numbers tell you what makes sense. Of course, we have to be the ones creating the creative and, being mindful of what else is out there and what can we do different. You always got to pay attention to the trends, but I think it's so important to make sure you're listening to your community because they're the ones supporting you. It's pretty simple.
I'm excited just personally here. I mean, it's like just hearing what you've been saying on identifying roles, departments, meetings, and all that. Literally the last 2 weeks, we've been focused on that, creating different departments, who's leading it, and then having more regular check-ins and stuff like that. And so I'm excited to see if we can kind of follow suit on that and see the efficiencies from there. But something that you keep mentioning is trends and data. I mean, how much has data played a role in your guys' growth? I mean, is it something that you see as important?
Yeah, no, it's facts, right? Like I just love facts. Like you eliminate a lot of opinions but yeah, I mean, you've obviously EIC has been a huge help in getting our CRM rolling and all that. So again, first several years, we didn't have the right reporting and everything to really now with, our reporting says pull up exactly how many, shirts sold. I can look at year over year trends. Our P&L is up to date. So that is so important. The more you grow, you need those numbers right at your fingertips if you want to make that next big decision, right? Any decision you want to base your decisions off of facts, and that's so important. So if anyone's listening, get all your stuff figured out at the very beginning, because we winged it for several years. So
yeah, but you guys winged it well.
I mean don't get me wrong, we still use numbers, but it was just not all the data was there, right? And it's just so important.
No, I love that, because before starting this, I was at ASU and we had a director that just wouldn't look at data. It would just be like, no, I like that, let's run with that. And it's amazing how many, as talk to more businesses, how many businesses just make more subjective decisions rather than let's look at the data and see what works.
Don't get me wrong, not just because data tells you one thing doesn't mean you necessarily have to do it, but at least you have that information at your fingertips, and you can have a honest, effective conversation with the team and be like, someone might think you should do this, but okay, we've sold 8 this year. Like this is not something we need to be focused on our energy on. So that's where it kind of just helps out. So I think, but it's just so important to base your decisions off of facts.
So as we kind of look towards the future, you guys are doing collaborations quite a bit. Your online sales are growing. You guys are growing. What are you most excited about more in the short term, the next 6 months? Is there something you're currently working on, or what are you most excited about for the next 6 months?
Getting ready to launch our State 48 Foundation is very exciting. Really, again, want to stand by what we always say is community, right? And we really want to make a bigger difference. And having this foundation 501c3 is going to help us do that. We have a lot of things cooking. We have a travel club that we were getting ready to launch prior to COVID, so that's not going to work out yet. So that'll be on hold. But opening more doors, right? Like our location in Chandler has been very successful. We have a location at the Churchill in downtown Phoenix, but opening more doors that way, it could be easier for people to shop. Still, a lot of people want to touch, feel it. Like retail is a different game now, but if you have a cool space where they can actually have an experience there, and you can, manage, like it's your crew that, are taking care of people. Stacy's a rock star at our headquarters, and everyone on our team is always going to have to take pride in customer service. So if you can control that, that's what I'm excited for. Could be very profitable. And I think just opening more doors and, venturing off to different things is going to allow us to grow more license deals. We have our credit card with 1AZ, hopeful for a license plate option. The State 48 license plate.
With ADOT or something?
What's that?
With ADOT?
Yeah, exactly.
That would be sweet.
Obviously, part of that is you have to have 501c3. So there's a lot of big stuff you're always working on, but in the short term, it's just really like making sure always the team's good. And again, like I was touching on, like that's been the most kind of exciting part for me recently, is just having those one-on-one conversations. Like, here's expectations, like, just making sure everyone feels empowered. And like, I don't want to personally, myself or Nick, or, working with the designers, like, we're not going to do justice if we're micromanaging or like having to be involved in every single thing. So it's just like, hey, you're on this team for a reason. You're amazing. Like, here's your expectations. I think it's important for people to understand their role and like why. You always got to explain why, right? But that's been the cool thing, is actually like really creating a business and a corporation, and just having those different pillars is what so many people ask how are you going to get outside of Arizona and, or how are you going to keep growing? I'm like, man, we're not even scratching the surface yet. If there's, not only are we not reaching everyone, it's so much we're going to be doing so much more than just products. The products will always be our core, right? But like I just mentioned, travel club, foundation, opening more doors, license deal. Like there's so much more opportunities out there for us.
That's a lot to toss around because everyone always wants to expand nationally, globally, and everything like that. But if everything is so state 48, it's like, well, maybe instead of expanding outside of the state lines, how can we just find different business opportunities and revenue lines within Arizona and keep hitting on that Arizona drum?
That's always the most common. Oh, you're only in Arizona. But yeah, there's a lot of people, and I'm not that naive person to say, oh, if you only hit 1% or 10% of like, but like knowing what's in our database now, growing our email, growing our social, like there's so much more opportunity. And if it turns into, franchise play where here's a model that works in Arizona, but you find passionate people in other states too, that's something that's on the radar too. But like our passion is Arizona, and that's the only thing that makes sense right now. So there's just so much more opportunities to grow in Arizona.
Clear vision, know your lane, keep going down it. So as we kind of wrap up, there's a lot of clothing brands have just exploded. With drop shipping, e-commerce, there's a lot of people that are doing it, trying to, maybe struggling. What would be your biggest piece of advice for anyone that's kind of starting out? They want to start their own brand, don't really know their vision, but what are some pieces of advice?
I always have a lot of fun. Like, I even got off the phone with my buddy this morning, and he was asking advice because he just started a clothing line that is, focused on sobriety. And I'm like, that's amazing, right? But it's so cool that like, remember when you first started, we had no idea what we were doing, right? You had no one to really lean on. And you just have to learn that kind of stuff as you go. But now it's been amazing to be able to, give that knowledge and pass on that knowledge to people. Because I want people to show love for Arizona, even if there's similar brands around State 48. And I think that's awesome. But I think that's what always is going to drive us that much more. But I think to answer your question, you got to be solving a problem. Like what's going to separate you? And for us, that's our community aspect, right? Like the collaboration side of the business, a lot of times until people really get to know who we are, don't even understand it, right? Like anyone can find incredible graphic designers, they make cool designs, but partnerships, relationships, that's huge, right? We're not about the transaction, and I hope everyone, I'd feel confident that anyone who's worked with us would vouch for that too and say like, hey, how could we add value? How can this be a relationship? If it's 2 years from down the road and we did 50 shirts with you, like what else could we do, right? So like that's, I think what separates, you want to work with people you enjoy to work with and good people. And that's the biggest thing is just solving a problem. And you got to be passionate about what you're doing. Don't just think you're going to start making millions of dollars by making a cool design. Because even if you have a cool design, like our logo, in my opinion, like it is still so, there's so many challenges every single day. It's so much harder to continue to grow, right? And make sure you're taking care. There's so much parts of the business that you could fail on, if you don't do it right.
You just nailed it on the head. It's so many people start stuff and just want to do it to make money rather than, all right, how can I use my passion and figure out how to solve a problem? That's what's always going to go. And I think that's just, outside of just fashion and stuff like that, it's knowing what you love doing and how can what your passion is solve a problem and then run with it. Because if you're not doing that, eventually you get to a point where you grow, where there's gonna be a lot of things you got to take care of that isn't just selling or building that product, like the accounting and staffing and all that. And if you're not loving it, all that stuff you're not going to do. And then
more money, more problems. And that just means like the more your revenue grows, the more you need to grow your team, the more responsibilities you have, the more pressure. Like now having a team, almost 15, not all, 7 of those team members are full-time, but like they're relying on State 48. That's like, that's a big, it's a lot that weighs on you. So I'm constantly like, always thinking about how we can do better and improve. And definitely there's so much more responsibility. If you're not in this for the right reasons, of course you want to, make money and sustain a business, but that a lot of times takes years to really get to a point. If you want to do it the right way, if you want to, be selfish and take the money and whatever you deserve, you deserve that. But if you want to work hard but not grow the team and take it to another level, you always got to be thinking of the business first, put money back in and that kind of stuff. So, the mission has to be there.
I appreciate the opportunity and helping you guys out. It's fun seeing your passion, the team's passion. I've never seen a group of people at a company that just love the brand and want to help the community out so much more. And so it's fun. You guys are going to just continue to grow like crazy. And I mean, when it comes to anyone that might not know who you guys are, I mean, how can they find you? How can they find State 48? Where can they find the clothing at?
We're all over the place on social media. It's just at State 48. That's all spelled out. No U in the 40. But yeah, state48.com. They'll show like other retailers that sell our stuff and our locations. But yeah, our social media is consistent when it's on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and kind of make it, you're kind of, customize it to every channel, right, too. So hopefully you'll see us on ads and such. But we have our headquarters in Chandler. If you ever want to come in and see us in person, see the product, that's where we're at. But at State 48 and state48.com is where you can find us.
Cool. Well, Mike, appreciate the time. Appreciate all the insights. Excited to see where you guys go from here.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.